Welcome back for part 2. As you recall, where I left, we were working on editing our home template, and we had managed to finish the top row, and we were looking at the bottom row. So in the bottom row, we're going to do a couple of different things. And first thing is going to be change those images just like we did before. So if you'll bear with me, I will change these images. Embed that image. Notice I'm not changing what the what it says. This was the course syllabus, so I'm going to continue working with course syllabus. At this point, I'm not changing any files. Option 7, syllabus. Again, notice our sizes are the 200 by 200. I'm going to come in here to Canvas resources. I want a different picture for that one. This is all the same steps that we've already done. I know I was working with, so Canvas help, update, now teacher information, which could be called different things for different levels. Maybe it's the schedule. It just depends on what you're working with, because I work with secondary. That's where I focus in on, and we need to have that schedule. So teacher info, update, and that one doesn't quite look right, that teacher info. I'm like, oh, well, let's see. It looks like there's an extra space on this one. So can I delete that space? I'm loudly clicking on my backspace and it's not working. And if I hit delete, oh, delete worked. Okay. So that was really nice that I could figure out delete worked, but I'm going to do something as if you have no idea why that didn't work, because I want to show you something very particular. So it's a combination of deletes and backspaces you may have to do different things. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, because I want you to see what's going on. These aren't sized the same, but maybe you're like, you know what? That top row is the really important stuff. This bottom stuff, maybe they don't need to access it as often. So you're okay with those being a little bit different sized, or maybe you just want to see more background. You don't want them to be quite as large all the time. So I'm going to show you what happens when you want to make some different kind of changes. So at this point, I'm only dealing with the second row of my table. So I have to scan down. Remember, that was the calendar, modules. So because it's our next row, we had all those TDs for the columns, right? And now we have a TR. So that's the table row. So this tells me that we are now beginning the second row. As soon as I see the TR, now I know I'm in the second row. And it makes sense, because if you watch the part 1, remember we started with the column, 4 column, and my width is now back to the 25. We never changed that. So if you want, you can go change all of those 25s to our 33s just right off the bat. And if you need to add a column, then you know how to do it, because you're going to make those widths to be, if you were starting at 3 and you needed to go to 4, you're just going to add that column. So that probably isn't going to change anything. You shouldn't see visually any big difference, because it was kind of almost doing that automatically, which is fine. But now we're going to look at those images. And so always the HTML editor for the widths. And as I look at my width, I'm like, okay, now is the images. So I know all of my images came in at the 200 by 200. So that's very much what I'm looking for, is that 200 by 200. And of course, I'm going to change those. But you know what? I said I didn't want it to be 100%. Let's go maybe with an 80% and see what happens. And I will make 80% on all of these, and you can kind of see what's going to happen. And I'm even going to do this last one, even though I was like, oh, it doesn't quite look the way I want it to look, and I'm going to leave it that way on purpose right now. Okay, so you can see the difference between 80% and 100%. There's just a little bit more space around the image. Okay. Now, one thing you may find when you do your edit is that if, depending on how the table was created, maybe, I'm going to actually show you what is really, really common. Okay, I'm going to turn this back to align left, because when we first input images, the Canvas just always assumes align left. And so when you have it as align left, you're like, it's not, that's probably not the image that you want. So we want to go in and, using your rich content editor, go ahead and click in that cell and make sure that you align center. And that's probably the best way to do it, is click on that image and align center. Okay, now I haven't changed any of the links on these, so the links are the same. Now we're going to come back over here to this teacher info, and we're going to say, oh, if you can't figure out how to fix something inside a cell, but everything else is perfect, and you're like, but I can figure out how to delete it. You know, I can take that darn image out of there, and great. Can I just put it in fresh? So if you need to embed your own image and there's nothing there, okay, keep in mind right now, I'm going to make sure there's nothing in that cell, backspacing. Okay, it's not even aligned center right now. We have completely emptied out this cell. So I'm going to grab my image. And if you're going to rearrange images and say, you know, that first cell, instead of it being the calendar, that's actually, I really want that to be the coursework, because they're going to do that all the time. This is the process that you would do, okay, if you're going to need to change some of those links. So this one was my teacher info. So I'm going to go ahead and update that, bring it in. Of course, it's not sized right, because I feel confident. I'm not going to save it. I'm just going to go straight to my HTML editor. I'm going to come down to my teacher one, and I know it was the last image, so it's going to be the only thing there left at the 200 by 200. But if we look at what's here, this is my very last TD. So this is all that is now associated with that. And when we think about some of the others, there was always this href and all this other stuff, and we're missing that right now because all we have is the image. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put my image, get my image height correct right now. So that part is done. And so, yep. Oh, but remember, we took all the formatting out. So we need to make sure we go back and center that, because it always looks better when it's centered. Scroll up, align center. Now I need to add the link. And so to do that, you just come over here. Let me move my image picture. So we come over here to our links or our files, depending on what you need to do. I guess our images are right there, but I'm just going to go ahead and do a link. And teacher info is a page. I don't actually have an active page in here that is for the scheduling, so does not really matter. I'm going to go ahead and just pick what was one? Instructor information. There, that's the one that makes sense. So now, just by having that highlighted and clicking on instructor information, I have now added that link. So when I come in here and to kind of test it, if I click on my teacher info, it's going straight to my instructor information. So that's it in a nutshell on how maybe you do a little bit more advanced editing when you're working with percentages. But the percentages is really the best thing whenever you have tables and whenever you have images. So if you have any questions, I'm Cindy Krause.